Good afternoon. Again, Mr. Happy from South Central Los Angeles. Again, I'll repeat, it's a great day to be alive. And why do I say that? Well, I'm 84. When I wake up in the morning, I made that day. Now, what I do with it is up to me. My producer suggested that I introduce myself to you and share a bit about me so you can get an understanding of my why, your why, and how I got to be where I am today. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, February 4th, 1939. So my young friends in their 50s and 60s called me a dinosaur. I bet it's complimentary. My name is Howard Ely. That's my proper name, Howard E-L-E-Y. And for whatever reason, over the years, I've been called a whole lot of names. Most of them my mother didn't name me. But, so I got a chance to name me, and I named myself Mr. Happy for the community and for the fellowship. Whatever community, I'm happy, Howard. I was instrumental in being one of the pioneers of Cocaine Anonymous in South Central Los Angeles in 1981 when I got sober, clean and sober. So let me tell you a little about me. As I said, I was born in Detroit, Michigan, 1939. I was the youngest of my mother's 3 children. And I've never was to play now. Saw my mother and father together in my life. My mother was born in Boston, Massachusetts in 1912. And my father was born in West Virginia. So what happened? I'm lucky to be here, and you're lucky to have met me because my sister and brother who preceded me were going to be a cesarean, and my mother had sworn she wasn't going to be cut on anymore. And when she got pregnant with me in 1938, what she did, she went to a doctor in Detroit and told him that she wanted an abortion. And the doctor told her it would be $50. And she set an appointment. Come back in a week or 2 hours. Go from directly to what I heard from her and family members, uncles and aunts. She went to the doctor on the appointed day with $25 and talked to him about doing the procedure, and he asked for his $50, etc. Of course, she didn't have it. So she was promised to come back with all the 50, with the other 25. So he said no, so she left. And guess what happened? She changed her mind. And I'm here today. And I've been here 84 years. So I tell all of you to give my mother an applaud because she wanted me to meet you. Well, as I said, I never saw my mother and father together in my life. We lived with my grandmother in Detroit, 656 Theodore. The street is no longer there. And it was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bedrooms and 1 bath. And we had my grandmother and grandfather, my mother and my sister and brother, my Aunt Lucretia with her family, my Uncle Reuben, my Uncle David, my Uncle James, and my Aunt Sarah, and my Aunt Lucretia as well. All of us lived in this one apartment. It was called a flat, upstairs and downstairs, and a basement. And I was raised, the religion I was raised in was Judaism. We were Negroes. We were Negro Jews. We did all the Jewish holidays, the Passover, the this, the that, and the religious aspect was a part of our lives. And as kids, we had to do what was told to us. We got up every morning and did our meditation and did our prayer and et cetera, et cetera. In 1943, my mother sent my brother and sister, she took them to Virginia. It was a Belleville Industrial School, but it was an orphanage home for people in the church, or in the temple, I mean, and that's where we were. That's where they were. I didn't go in 1943 because I wasn't old enough. You had to be 5. But in 1944, my mother sent me there, and I was there for 5 years. My brother was there for 6, and my sister was there for 3 because they sent her back to my mother because for whatever reason. It was a survival for us, and what they taught us or what they did to us today would be construed as child abuse. I was very fearful. We had an outhouse, and if you've ever been around an outhouse, you know the odor, the stench. And for the 5 total years I was there, I was always fearful every day I might fall in. However, I survived. And my grandmother, no, I mean, my great-grandmother, who was born in 1862, she resided there as well. Her name was Fanny Merritt. We were survivors. We were survivors. I'm not going to tell any tales of woe, but the reality is we survived. The hierarchy in the church, the bishops, the potentates, all those people, they had big cars, big money, and they took advantage of an opportunity. And we worked in the fields. We had a one-room school. I know about a one-room school with 4 classes in it. But again, we survived. In the 5 years, I saw my mother one time. She came down in I think it was 47 or 48. I don't remember precisely what year it was. And she took us back to Detroit for the summer, my brother and me. And then she sent us back by ourselves on the train. We had a shoebox with our food in it. In those days, the trains were segregated. Black Negroes, we sat in the front, and whites sat in the back, and we couldn't go to the dining car, but we didn't have any money anyway. So, but I was there for 5 years, and I learned how to survive. I remember one year during the harvest, we were harvesting the fruits, and I had saw this big red apple on this tree. I wanted to get it from my teacher, and I climbed up this tree. I must have been about 7 or 8, and I was reaching to pick the apple, and my hand was on the branch on a snake, and I fell out the tree, and I was afraid of snakes for many years. So anyway, when I was 10, my mother came and got my brother and me and took us back to Detroit. Now, one of the things that I have been taught was the truth shall set you free. Now, I'm going to tell my life. I'm going to expose to you who I am, what my family life was like. My mother, as I said, and father, I never saw them together. I don't know when they got divorced or whatever, but my mother was a party girl. She was a party girl, and she liked to have fun. She liked to party, and whatever that entailed, that's what she did. And because I tell you that, I am free with myself. Now, whatever you might think about my mother is dead. I'm glad she didn't get an abortion. And so hopefully you can understand that it's just okay. It's just okay that I am telling my story. And one of the challenges that we have in our society is that some religions say the truth shall set you free. However, if I were to go into your house of worship and tell us my story, my life experience, a great many of you would point your finger at me and say, "Oh my gosh," you know. But I'm 84, I'm alive, and I'm glad to be able to share my story with you, so you'll know who you're listening to when you follow me on TikTok. Well, my mother, as I said, was a party, and I saw her, with various men. And that's where she lived. And some of them, Joe Worthy, Eddie Proctor, and a couple of others. I don't remember their names. So my brother and I lived with my mother, and then she allowed my father to come and get us. He lived in a little town outside Detroit, in Inkster, Michigan. And he had a plastering company, and he had Eddie's Old Hickory and a barbecue restaurant. And behind the barbecue restaurant, we had a one room. It must have been about 10 feet long and maybe about maybe about 4 or 5 feet wide. And my brother, and my father, and my stepmother, and we lived in that one room. We had a army cot, a double-decker bed. My brother and I slept on the bottom. My father and stepmother slept on the my brother and I slept on the top. My father and stepmother slept on the bottom. Don't feel sorry for me. We survived. We survived the snow. We survived this. We survived that. My father didn't like me because of my complexion. I had red hair as a kid, and I've always had these freckles. And he didn't like me. But my father taught me how to be a man. My father taught me how to be responsible for his family. And for that, I'll be forever grateful. My father told my brother and me, I was 13, my brother was 14. He told us he didn't accept any collect calls from anybody in jail who went to jail. He didn't send anybody in jail any money. He didn't visit anyone in jail. And he didn't go to court to see anyone in jail because he said he didn't go to jail. So when I decided to live on the wild side of life, I didn't call Eddie Ely, my father, because I already knew the rules. It was about cause and effect. My father gave me my first cigarette. He gave me my first drink of wine. My father gave me a whole lot of first of everything. So I lived with him for 5 years. Then I went back to live with my mother and stepfather. And therein, my life made a turn. My mother and stepfather, my stepfather worked and my mother worked as well in doing domestic work. However, on the weekend, they drank heavily and they went to these, what they call rent parties. And that's what they did. They had these rent parties and they would come in on Sunday morning after being out all night Saturday night, fussing and fighting and raising hell and whatever. I remember when I was 15, my mother and stepfather came home and they were arguing. It was Sunday morning about 5 or 6 o'clock. And I woke up and was going to intercede, defend my mother at 15. And my mother reprimanded me and sent me back into my bedroom. And she and my stepfather went in their bedroom. And that's the story. I learned how to stay out of folks' business. Anyway, I went to Central High School, which was 2 blocks from the first mosque that Elijah Muhammad started in Detroit. I had fairly good grades. I worked. I shined shoes. I shoveled snow. I cut grass. I did a lot of things, but I stayed out of trouble because I was more afraid of my father than I was afraid of my friends. And so when they talk about peer pressure, I didn't experience that. To make a long story short, I engaged in sex with a girl named Joan Connor. That was the first sex I ever had in my life. I had a girlfriend named Barbara Battle, and we didn't have sex. I joined the Navy at 17, and that's when I learned how to drink heavily. That's when I learned how to smoke marijuana. That's when I learned to do a lot of things. Because in the Navy, as long as I was back on time when I went on liberty or did my job, I had no issues with the captain or the chief petty officers over me. So I was pretty good in the Navy. I stayed in the Navy 5 years. I got discharged in August of 1962 in the Duval County Jail. No, I'm sorry, 1961, because I had gone AWOL from the Navy, and I started doing some illegal stuff. So I did 6 months on the chain gang. Went back to Detroit, attempted to get some work, and that was unsuccessful. I got a couple of jobs selling. Can you imagine selling carpet clean in the wintertime in Detroit with snow on the ground? And my brother David had gotten to the hustling game, the pimping game, and so of course I learned that. I met my first wife I married her in Jacksonville, Florida. She was a woman who went both. She was bisexual. When I met her, she had a son. He was 4 years of age, and she was 21, the same age as me. And she was involved with a woman that she had met when she was 17 in the hospital. So, she and her girlfriends would entertain each other, and they invited me, and I participated in that. And it was a strange life, to be involved with multiple women at a time, and to see how they did it. I did my 6 months on the chain gang in Jacksonville, Florida, and I hitchhiked back when I got out of jail. I got a job at the Jacksonville airport. I was a busboy for 25 cents an hour and one meal. I worked there one day, and the next day I packed all my little belongings I had in a Kroger sack, and I told Marianne I was going back home. As my wife, her name was Marianne. So I hitchhiked back to Detroit, and again got involved with my brother in the game of pimping. I met my second wife, and I introduced her to that in Chicago. But to make a long story short, I did a lot of illegal things. I did a lot of things in my life that I had to ask God to forgive me for. I had to ask myself to forgive me for. I had to make amends. And today, I'm a new person. I got on my knees and asked for forgiveness. I don't know who I was asking, but that's what I was instructed to do. So that's who you've been listening to. What happened to me? I surrendered my attitude. I surrendered what I was taught. I questioned wine, women, and song. I questioned have a good time because you might die tomorrow. I questioned some things. I was told the ideal woman was a size 3, 5, 7, or 9. She had to have a certain complexion. She had to look like this. She had to do that. And I bought into that until one day I decided that I'm going to decide for me. I was a dope addict. I was a dope pusher, and I was a pimp. And I lived that lifestyle. I had $1,000 bill at one time. I had a bracelet with about 50 diamonds in it, with this word spell out mine. Mine. My ego was involved. A lot of money, brand new cars, glamorous women, and I had it all. And I had a lot of cases on my way to jail. And so, but in the meantime, over the years, I learned how to cook. I was a professional cook. I went to beauty school, became a professional hairdresser. See, because I knew that I didn't have a license to do some of the things I was doing, and I always had to have a cover. I was busted by the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. I was facing 75 years in jail, and I got out of that by confessing that I was an alcoholic and an addict. And the last time I got arrested, the judge sentenced me 3 years to San Quentin and suspended, and I got on probation. And I did pretty good for a couple of weeks, a couple of days, a couple of months. But I still had a couple of women doing illegal things, selling dope and prostitution. And so in August of 81, I got a dirty UA, a dirty urinalysis. And my probation officer told me, he said, nigga, if you get one more dirty test, you're going to San Quentin and be somebody's wife. And I weighed 120, maybe 130 pounds. But I didn't hear him because I was still getting this fast money. And I had these women. And on December the 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, 1981, I got an ounce of cocaine, cost me $600. And two of my women and I, we were smoking cocaine and having diversified sex. And at 4:15 in the morning, I had a vision for me. I saw me in San Quentin with Bubba saying yes and I'm saying no. And I weighed 125 pounds. And I surrendered. And my life turned around. What caused me to change? How did I get to where I am in my life? Well, as you've heard on the last broadcast, I told you something about my childhood and something about my early childhood and in the military and time I spent on the chain gang in Florida and what I did after that, various and sundry dishonest things, selling dope, pimping women, and other inappropriate behavior, antisocial behavior. But what happens, to my best recollection, I did an assessment of my life, where I was at the time, and after about 2 or 3 months, I just looked at where I was in my life, what was going to be the rest of my life. And what I did, I asked myself some questions about my life, and I decided that I wanted to do something productive in my life. And I came up with the idea, because I'd been going to meetings. I got sober December of 81. So in 82, I was trying to figure out where was my life going. And what I came up with was smart kids say no thanks to drugs and alcohol. And I came up with that because the society that I grew up in, you were encouraged to drink. That was a part of coming alive. Being an adult, rites of passage, and the cute thing to smoke weed or use a little cocaine. I didn't use any heroin because I saw my sister use heroin and saw what that was about. But I lived on the wild side. I got involved with pimping and other things. But again, as I told you, I always had a trade. I learned how to cook professionally. I went to beauty school. But back to my wife's question, what happened? I got motivated. As my father used to say, what's your initiative? And I got motivated out of the desperation that if I continued to live where I had lived, I was going to be in jail. I was going to be in prison. And all the things that I didn't want to happen was going to happen to me. So I came up with Smart Kids Say No Thanks to Drugs and Alcohol. And since that time, it's expanded to all things. I developed the Smart Kids Pledge. It's a pledge that if children live by that, their lives would be, it's a GPS. It's not a program. It's a GPS. It's called the Smart Kids Pledge, and it's on my website, americaskmsc.org or .com. And kids can get a chance, the parents can get a chance to read it and understand. Just follow the GPS. And the answers will come if you're honest with yourself. And that's very important. I think it's essential. Now, I know it's essential that you have to be honest with you. Oftentimes, we want to be honest to someone else, but are we honest to ourselves? One of our billboards, I call our T-shirts our billboards, it says, know your why. If you know your why, then you know your freedom. If you know your why too, you also know your why not to. So that's how I came about being the person I am today. Because I decided that my purpose in life was going to help kids make smart choices. I got involved with the recovery and Alcoholics Anonymous and Cocaine Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. I got involved with Al-Anon. I got involved with going to the schools. I got involved with going to some churches. I got involved with going to the senior citizen homes. And my message was the same thing. Be good to yourself. If there's an opportunity for you to just sit back and ask yourself a question, before you act, understand the response. It's called cause and effect. So what I did, I got sober. I got involved with the Smart Kids Make Smart Choices. I got involved with the United Way. I did volunteer work, opened up numerous meetings. I was one of the pioneers of the Cocaine Anonymous of South Central Los Angeles. It was Harold Taylor from St. Louis, Ronnie from Brooklyn. Philip was from Las Vegas, and I'm from Detroit. Sometimes I stutter, so please excuse me, but that's just a part of who I am. And so I've done yeoman's work in the community. I'm known all over the world in the Recovery Happy Hour. I'm known because I've given so much to my community. I've given so much to the family that I have today. Everywhere I go, I'm welcomed. And people don't like everything I say, but the question becomes this: have I ever lied to you? Have I ever told you anything that was going to harm you? Or the message that I delivered to you being good to yourself, what does that mean? Simply this: I don't hurt you and I don't hurt me. Because there's a consequence to hurt. My God is love, Love. And I know that if I live love, even when I disagree with you, as I do disagree with my 3 daughters, I love them, but I disagree with them. But I love, if we live love, not practice love, if we live love, it'll be just okay. Just okay. I'm not about right and wrong. I'm not about condemning you about what you've done, your behavior. What I'll ask you is, how did it work out for you? Whatever decision you make, let's go back to cause and effect. Action, reaction. So ask yourself, what did I do to cause this to turn out like it is? And you get a chance to know why you did it, what motivated you. And then you get a chance to say, well, I did that. My thinking caused me to do X, Y, Z. And now look what happened to me. So then you say, well, what did I learn from doing that or engage in that behavior? One of the things I suggest to you, as my father suggested to me, he says, when someone says, let's do something with your stuff, there's an element of risk. Because they have a cute way of telling you it's going to be greater later, it's going to be this. But you ask yourself, is this my choice, or am I doing it based on what someone else says? Here's the question I'm going to put out there to all of you who are listening. 3 people you're approached by, and they will be referred by someone that you love, your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your husband, your wife, your school teacher, anyone. But it's 3 people that I'm going to introduce you to, and I'm going to say, they're going to pitch you something, and who's the most believable? And you might say those are all 3 of them. But the 3 people I suggest that you talk to, and you give 10 or 15 minutes, who's the most believable? A preacher, a politician, or a pimp? I'm not going to give you the answer. But 95% of the people ask that question, so pick out one person. And remember, they might say that to all 3. But who's the most believable in what they love? So this is why where I am today. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to serve our community. I'm here to help our kids make smart choices. And what I'm asking you, are you willing to help me help our kids make smart choices? Are you willing to help me help you make smart choices? Because if you've been returned where your life is today, and you ask yourself where I'm going to be tomorrow, based on what you're doing today, what's the answer? As we mentioned before, are you going to be your kid's hero, or do you need an athlete or an entertainer or a rapper to be your children's heroes? Let you be the hero that your children need. Let you involve yourself. Until next time, just remember this. Be good to yourself. Let's serve our population. Let's serve our brothers and sisters. And more importantly, let's serve the children. Because they are our future. Until next time, this is Happy Howard, signing out.